Hello! Hello, good afternoon, morning, evening, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to Unit 2's third lesson. Last lesson we learned about evaluating functions with tables and graphs. Today we're actually going to evaluate equations known as functions. So again, seeing something like this, we pronounce that as f of x, which means my function of x equals 3x plus 4. F of x means I have a function named f. X is my input. So whatever number I say x is, if I say x is 5, I'm going to put a 5 wherever x is. Does this mean f times x? No, please always remember this. I'm probably going to ask somebody in a little bit, does f of x, does this right here mean f times x? And you better say no if I ask you later on when you're back in class, because clearly you're not in class right now. Okay, so for evaluating functions, so we have find f of 5 if f of x equals 3x plus 1. So from our last lesson yesterday, or whenever you watched it, we talked about how f of 5 means 5 is your x value. Again, it's usually written as f of x. So when I've placed 5 inside, that means 5 is my new x. So wherever I see an x, I am going to put now a 5 instead. So down here, I'm going to write f of now 5, because again, my 5 is going to replace wherever I see an x, equals 3. Oh, now there's another x. So I'm going to put another 5 in there, plus 1. And now we solve. So again, f of 5 means 5 is my input, so I'm going to replace x wherever I see it with a 5. So now I have f of 5 equals 3 times 5 is 15 plus 1. So then f of 5 equals 16. And that's your final answer. F of 5 equals 16. Again, that was our original question, find f of 5. So we plugged 5 in wherever we saw an x, solved it, f of 5 equals 16. Okay, there's two problems here. I want you to pause and attempt both of these problems. If you are stuck, come back, unpause me to get help getting unstuck, and then pause me to try and finish or to work on the next one. When you're finished, come back, check your answer. All right, go ahead, pause me now and do B and C. All right, either you're stuck or you're finished. So this one was a little different wording here. I have if g of x equals negative 3x minus 6 when x is negative 4. So again, same thing. When I have f of 5, this means the same thing as x equals negative 4. This is what's my function when x is 5. This is what's my function when x is negative 4. It's just formatted a little bit differently, but it means the same thing. So I'm going to put a negative 4 wherever I see an x. So I'm going to put a negative 4 there, and I'm going to put a negative 4 here. So I'm solving for g of negative 4 when I have negative 3 times negative 4 minus 6. Down here, you can't do anything. I'm just going to rewrite g of negative 4. That's how we write it. Negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. So your final answer for this one was g of negative 4 equals 6. So again, just slightly different formatting. Here I had f of 5. Here I had x equals negative 4. Both are telling me what my input is, so we're putting that wherever we see an x. This next one here is exactly the same as the one above, just with different numbers. So you have v of 10. If vx equals negative 4x plus 5, you're going to take that 10, put it in both places where the x is, and solve it just like we did these two. So if you were stuck on B, pause me and now try C, or hang tight and watch if you're checking your answer. All right, so that 10 is going to go both places where x is. Getting these messages here. So when I rewrite this, I can say v of 10 equals negative 4 times 10 plus 5. Now we solve. V of 10 equals negative 40 plus 5. V of 10 equals negative 40 plus 5 means I'm subtracting, so I get negative 35. They had different signs, so my final answer is V of 10 equals negative 35. All right. Hopefully you did okay on those. Come back up to these later for reference. You have some problems. That's not IP. Exactly like that in IP. Literally exactly like it. So if you're stuck, just scroll back up. So again, make sure you have these problems filled out so you can use them for reference when you're doing IP. Okay, now we're going to look at doing the opposite. So for these ones, I gave you the input. I told you what x was, and we found what my function equaled. We found our y. We found our output. Now I'm going to give you your output. I'm going to tell you what your function equals, and we have to solve for x. So unfortunately, those of you that struggle with solving equations, that's what we're about to do. They're just two-step equations, so I think you guys are going to be fine. And we just need to make sure we're substituting in our function values. So let me do this one as an example, and then we'll try the other two. So in the function f of x equals 3x plus 1, find x if f of x equals 10. So I tell you what f of x is. So this is where we can use substitution. Just like up here how I told you what x equaled and we put it where x was, right here I'm telling you what f of x equals, so I'm going to put this where f of x is. So it's going to replace this whole thing. So now I have 10 equals 3x plus 1. And I ask you to find x. So again, we just substituted here. We had f of x equals 10, so I can substitute that in where f of x is. And now we solve. Minus 1 from both sides. 9 equals 3x divided by 3. And 3 equals x. So when my function equals 10, when f of x is 10, when 10 is my output, my input is 3. Okay. That is what you're doing for B and C. I'm telling you what your output is. I'm telling you g of x is 24. So you're going to replace 24 here with g of x, solve for x. This one, I tell you what v of x equals. You're going to replace v of x here with 25 and then solve for x. Go ahead, take a minute, try these two problems. Again, if you're stuck, come back and get unstuck and then try. Or once you finish, come back to check your answers. Go ahead, do these two problems now. All right. So hopefully you did this. You're either checking your answer or you got stuck so you needed some help. G of x is 24, so that 24 is coming in and substituting the g of x. And now we solve. We can add 6 to both sides. I get 30 equals negative 3x. Divide by negative 3. And I get x equals 10. If you were stuck, now pause me to try the next one. Otherwise, hang tight and I'll show you how to do this one. Again, if I'm going too fast, simply just pause me. I'm a video. Super easy. Okay, we have v of x equals 25, so v of x is going to come in and substitute out v of x. So we have 25, and that equals negative 4x plus 5. Now we solve. Subtract 5, and I get 20 equals negative 4x. Divide by negative 4, and I get negative 5 equals x. Beautiful. Hopefully you were able to get maybe one right, or at least attempt, and you were close. I just want you to try. Now the last thing we can do with functions here is we can create a table. Yesterday we were evaluating the table, picking and finding what the inputs and outputs were. But now we can use our function to create our inputs and our outputs. So let's just work through two of these. I'm going to do the first one and the second one, and that should be enough for you to do the other three on your own. So here it's kind of combining both steps from what we did above. So whenever we're given the input, it's just like these ones. We use our input, plug it in to get our output. So that's how you'll solve these three. So let me go ahead and do that now. So I give you your input here is negative 2. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 wherever I see an x. So f of negative 2 is negative 3 times negative 2, running out of room, plus 4. So again, negative 2 is my input, so I put it into my function wherever I saw an x. And now I solve. Negative 3 times negative 2 is 6, plus 4. So we get 10. So my output here is 10. X is my input. We input it into our function to get our output. Okay. Then we have our output is given. This is like these ones where we put our output in for g of x, and then we solve for x. So here I'm given my output, f of x is 7. So I'm going to put that where f of x is. So I'm going to say 7 equals negative 3x plus 4. So now I'm given my output, I need to find what my x value is. So I can subtract 4 from both sides. I get 3 equals negative 3x. Divide by negative 3 on both sides. And you get negative 1 equals x. So that means in order to get an output of 7, my input needs to be negative 1. All right, the two different ways. So here we have an input of 0, so you're going to plug 0 into your function. What do you get? This last one here, you have 2 for an input, so plug 2 into your function. What's your output? And then you have this one here where your output is 1. So you're putting 1 here where f of x is, and then solving for x. So subtract 4 from both sides, and then divide. All right, go ahead and try these. Get started now. Come back if you're stuck. All right, I know this looks really wild and disorganized, but for this one here, 0 was your input, so you plugged 0 in for x. Negative 3 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is 4, so when you plug in 0, 4 is your output. 1, so we set our output is 1, so we set our function equal to 1, equals negative 3x plus 4. Subtract 4 from both sides, negative 3 equals negative 3x. Then you divide, and you get 1 equals x. The last one, you were given your input of 2, so we plug 2 in. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, plus 4 gives us negative 2. All right, pause me, make sure you have that filled out. So again, we've done two different things. We used our input, plugged it in to get our output. Then we took our output and found what our x was, found our input, and then we used that to create a table. So now with your independent practice, You have 3 problems using your inputs.